Hi, this is Eddie Hearn, and you're watching Lights Out.
This is Vasyl Khan for Lights Out, proudly sponsored by Spartans Law, and this is podcast 61 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast. With me, as always, delighted to be joined by the MVP, the face of the channel, all that palaver, Mohsin Gulsher, aka Ron. How are you, mate?
Pleasure. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Let's just sort that microphone out first. But it's been a while. I mean, one Carabao Cup win and then an arse whooping 7-0 at Anfield. I mean, you're kind of up there one minute, then down there. But I don't know. Like, where have you been lately?
I've been around. I came out when the result on the weekend with the humbling that Liverpool had.
Listen, you also got a humbling day as well at the start of the season. But anyway, listen, enough about football. How you been?
Been good, mate. Good, mate. Yeah.
Family.
Well, I think I'm really excited to talk about the boxing. I mean, there's lots been happening, hasn't it?
It's a shitload that's been happening, but obviously we'll get into that. Before we obviously do get into the podcast, just want to remind the viewers out there, if they haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment and share. And also make sure you check us out on all the social media platforms. This podcast is available on all the audio platforms as well. Links are below in the description. As Ron said, a lot to talk about. But with every podcast, we'll start off with our quick fire question. And this is something we'd love the viewers to get involved in as well. So make sure you leave your comments below. And today's quick fire question is, what is your favourite memory of Lennox Lewis in boxing and why? Ron, floor's all yours, mate. I'll let you go first.
For me, it was, the Lennox Lewis, arguably one of the greatest heavyweights out there for what he achieved in the box, becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion. That's the last linear, won all the titles. Mm-hmm. Last man to ever do so. But for me, it was redemption when he beat Evander Holyfield after that first fight, which was a controversial draw. Which I think, which a lot of people agreed that he did win that. But the second fight where he won that, so that I think that, he got what he deserved.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the last undisputed heavyweight champion. It's a shame we're not going to get one anytime soon, but obviously that's something we'll discuss a little bit later on. And my favourite Lennox Lewis memory has to be the revenge win over Hasim Rahman Jr. Obviously, he saw the little scuffle on, HBO? And they both power slammed each other through a table. I think they'd been watching too much WWE at the time. But yeah, I've got to say the rematch win over Hasim Rahman Jr. because he had a lot of people at the time saying that he needs to call it a day. He needs to sort of move away from the sport. And he proved his doubters wrong and become a world champion again. Great fighter.
Absolutely.
You've got to consider him as one of Britain's all-time best.
I mean, if you think about that first defeat he had, it was Oliver McCall, wasn't it? Where he was knocked out and then he just kind of completely ripped up the kind of, his fighting style, and he went to, Manuel Stewart. And kind of changed his boxing style and to do what he did in the sport and leave the sport with his brains, with his kind of everything intact, and I actually enjoyed it. And he had, for me, he's got one of the best jabs for a heavyweight. Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal heavyweight, great fighter. Yeah. I don't think he gets the recognition that he deserves though, which is a shame because a lot of people talk about the heavyweights. They talk about Muhammad Ali, they talk about Mike Tyson, Joe Frazier, but this guy was our last undisputed world champion, and he fought the best and he beat the best.
He didn't fight Riddick Bowe.
It didn't, but you don't always get what you want in this sport. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comment section on what your favourite Lennox Lewis moment in boxing is. As I've said, there's quite a bit to talk about today. We're going to have to start on a very negative note because the news broke out during last week about Amir Khan failing a drugs test. Supposedly it was after the defeat to Kell Brook. Drugs is an occurring issue in boxing as of late. Obviously, there's still a massive sort of question mark hanging over Conor Benn. But this, for me, is an all-new low. I think the biggest disappointment in all of this is that it's taken over a year for it to come out. Why has it taken a year for it to come out? I've got to say right now that this sport is massively in the mud. I know it's a phrase I've used before, but this time I it's hard to sort of. How does boxing come back from this? Why is it taking a year on? Let's start with that.
I generally don't know what's taking on. I mean, it suggests that the drug testing program is not fit for purpose. You know, it should be highlighted at that point, the earliest point, when it was, you know, he failed the test. That's when it should have been, right, this is not happening. This is when the ban should have happened. Not over a year after the fight had taken place.
After he's retired.
Yeah, after he's retired. He's like, I'm into my retirement. Same with, you know, with Conor Benn. It was like only a few days before the fight was to take place. It was a farce, you know. I mean, we still haven't got any clarity what's happening. He said he's got a 277-page document. Amir Khan saying he didn't, you know, take it willingly, you know, or knowingly that he took a performance-enhancing drug, but it's a drug that's known for that bodybuilders use, and he goes, oh well, it was a small amount, and I wasn't really impressed with his kind of when he was. I think it was on Sky Sports. He was leaving somewhere, and he said, "Oh, look at my performance," and clearly it didn't help me. I was like, "No, that's not the point here. You took an illegal substance."
I think he's the first fighter to take an illegal substance and still lose.
But you know, it was just no justification. Like, you know, oh, I lost anyway, so what does it matter?
Exactly.
Like, no,
you know what I mean?
What if it was the other way around?
Yeah.
And Kell Brook was in hospital, and you know, it was a Michael Watson situation, or you know, that I'm just thinking of the
Gerald McLennan.
You know, this is.
You know what I mean? Look, I mean, for me, the biggest disappointment is why is it taking a year for it to come out? I mean, because you got to remember, like, okay, after the first fight, Amir Khan I think he reactivated his rematch clause to fight Kell Brook. Let's just say whatever he put in his system was a few days before the fight, and it was one of those that takes its time to sort of.
Sure.
Let's just say the rematch had happened, something seriously bad went wrong, and Kell Brook suffered an injury. Or, I don't know, maybe he spoke about wanting to do exhibition fights in Dubai, wanting an exhibition fight with Floyd Mayweather. I mean, you're right. It's not the point, oh, well, I lost anyway. So no. I mean, like, this is not a sport for the weak and heart.
No.
And this is an issue that's currently going on and on and on. And we just don't seem to have sort of any resolution as to how to stop this in boxing. But the 2-year ban, why are you banning a fighter that's retired? Me personally, I would have fined him and I would have made it a hefty fine. I'm talking millions.
Yeah.
And I would have made him do some sort of rehabilitation program and some sort of...
What is he rehabilitating for? He's moving on. He's
some
left
sort of service towards amateur boxing.
Yeah.
You know, I personally, what I would have done is I would have sent him to these young amateur boxing groups, and I would have, when you break the law, you get community service, you got to go and paint outside in the public. Something like that, but go and spend time with the amateurs.
Sure. I agree.
And tell them how to keep away from drugs in sports. But it's a slap in the face to the fans and to the rest of the sport to ban a fighter that's already retired.
But it's a recurring theme with British boxers at the moment. You know, we've had, not so long ago, Tyson Fury, there was kind of discrepancies there with certain drugs in his system. We had Dillian White as well, Jarrell Miller. So it's like, where do we draw the line? When do we actually see a ban and it's for life? I mean, that's going to be a proper deterrent. Like, look, you do this once, then that's it. We can't take any risk of you entering that ring, and we can be certain that you're clean.
But it's got to come to a lifetime ban because, Canelo did it, got 6 months ban, but he fights every 6 months.
Sure.
Where's the logic in that? I think there's got to come a point where these boxing commissions and, your Nevada state commissions and, UKADs, they really have to make an example out of somebody. And I'm hoping I'm right in saying that the next time an issue like this does happen, I think someone's going to made an example of, because that is what needs to happen to get rid of drug cheats in boxing. It's as simple as that. Tony Benny says it all the time.
There seems to be a technicalities that they get away with, with obviously Conor Benn, with consuming eggs and eggs, that has been, and he doesn't agree with that. Amir Khan saying, "Oh, well, it was a small amount, and I could have got it from shaking people's hands." Like, this is, we need to draw a line. We need to say, look, either you're a drug cheat or you're not. There's no in between.
But if you fail the test run, it's very rare that a B sample comes out
negative.
It's very rare. It's very rare. But I'm ashamed.
I think
I'm I'm ashamed.
The commission needs to be looked at, how they do it, and how... I mean, that protocol needs to be addressed.
You know what, right?
Like, it's taken far too long. I mean, like, over a year after the fight had taken place, now we're finding out.
You know, I'm ashamed because, you know, you spend so much time looking into the sport, pardon me, and you're a fan of the sport.
Sure.
And then you constantly give it so much praise of what it's done over the years, the great nights it's given us, but then you look at situations like this, and to get a 2-year ban, but he's already retired. It just makes you think sometimes, what does the future hold for boxing?
I mean, he could have went into that boxing ring jacked up, and he was like, well, this is my last hurrah, I want to beat Kell Brook. I mean, let me ask you a bit on the back of that. What did you make of Kell Brook's kind of response?
I think Kell Brook's response is spot on, mate.
Yeah,
absolutely spot on.
Don't you think there's a bit of hypocrisy there, that he's looking to go into a fight with a Conor Ben, who's also come back with a drug boxing, drug controversy
You've got to look at it in two different ways. I think that there's still a question mark hanging over the Conor Ben case. Conor Ben claims he's got proof. At some point, he's going to have to release this proof. He has to release this proof because boxing will not forgive him if he carries on without releasing this 277 page dossier. So you kind of give him a slight benefit of the doubt. Well, if you've got proof, before you fight again, you make sure you reveal that proof. But at the same time, Kell Brook, you know, he's had some issues outside of the ring. He's openly admitted that since being away from boxing, he's not been the same again. So he's looking as a way out to sort of move away from his troubles. And a fight with Conor Ben is probably what he feels he needs right now. I personally think he shouldn't fight again because he's got nothing left to prove.
Back on that, I mean, the British Boxing Board of Control is not going to allow any British fighter to fight Conor Ben. Now, well, obviously, I think you broke the news to me that Eubank Jr. was
Robert Smith and the British Boxing Board of Control would not approve of a fight Conor Ben.
So, back to that point that you were just making, that he needs to show them the evidence to say, hey, look, this is the evidence that I have, but he's still not willing to do that.
Well, this is it, isn't it? I mean, you know, if you watch that interview with Simon Jordan and Eddie Hearn, which I thought was brilliant, you know, Simon Jordan's point is, well, why has the proof not been shown? You know, as Simon Jordan likes to say, it's dollars for donuts. Why has the proof not been shown? You know, if you've got proof to clear your name, just show it to the world, and then we can all move on from this because it's you know, I mean, we should be talking about the great fights we've got to look forward to in terms of the Garcias and the Tanks and the rumours about Spence and Crawford. But what's the current number one topic in boxing? Drug cheats.
At the moment,
that's clouding over every good thing that is happening in boxing right now. You know, the smaller weights are giving us the fights that we want to see. But at the same time, we're constantly dealing with Conor Ben's situation. We're constantly looking at Amir Khan's situation. You know, it's just... how can you shed the sport of boxing some positive light right now? Because this... You know, you get one positive, you know, it's one step forward, and then you get in a situation like... I don't know. But look, at the end of the day, Again, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Anyone caught using performance-enhancing drugs in any sport should be banned for life. And that's without a B sample as well. Because, like I said, it's very rare that a B sample comes back negative. So we shall see. Let's move on. Anthony Joshua returned to the ring last weekend with a win over Jermaine Franklin. First win since December 2020.
Bloody hell, it's been that long.
Last win was against Okolive, but he's only fought twice since after that against Alexander Usyk. And we know how those fights went. Ron, what did you make of the AJ Franklin fight?
There's positives to take out of that fight. You know, obviously it's a new trainer, so with Derek James, and that relationship takes time to gel. I thought technically he boxed really well. You know, obviously he's up against Franklin.
Did he really?
What's that? Sorry.
Technically boxed really well.
I think so. I think he was. I mean, let me finish the positives off. You know, he looked a lot more solid in his technique, using that jab really well, using that distance really well. He was up against Franklin with quicker hands, and Franklin was kind of mentioning, you know, leading up to the fight that he had watched, you know, Joshua's first fight with Ruiz Jr. 'Mm-hmm. to kind of use that as somewhat of a blueprint. But obviously the weakness is, you probably might agree with me here that he was gun shy. He didn't let those hands flow. Go actually like those combinations. It was just like too many singles, 1-2s, and not enough of that old Joshua pre-Ruiz Jr. That first fight. That's what a lot of people are making that assessment. That he was more focused on not losing rather than focusing on winning the fight. Getting him out there. What are your thoughts?
Well, I believe obviously the week of the fight, there's a lot of hype surrounding the fight. I believe that they hyped Anthony Joshua up to be this sort of monster that was going to return back to the ring and knock out Jermaine Franklin. A lot of people said that it's going to be a destructive AJ. It's going to be the AJ that beat Dillian White. It's going to be the AJ that beat Vladimir Klitschko. It was probably a worse version of AJ that beat Andy Ruiz. I look back at the second fight. I wasn't impressed with it. It just that style does not suit him. He's got all the respect in the world for Anthony Joshua for what he's achieved, but he's not a boxer. He's a powerhouse. Why are you constantly changing? It's his third fight with a third different trainer. He's 34 years old. What are you trying to prove, trying to get him to be something that he's not? This guy is based on one thing, in my opinion. That's power. That power he possesses can knock out any heavyweight in the world. I just thought he seemed a bit too reluctant to let his shots go out.
Yeah,
I don't think he's recovered from the Ruiz defeat. I don't. I've said this for a very long time, but he's not been the same fighter since that first defeat to Andy Ruiz. Make of him what you want, the second fight with Ruiz and the win over Kubrat Pulev. They weren't great performances. It took nine rounds to get rid of a Kubrat Pulev, a 39-year-old Kubrat Pulev. Andy Ruiz coming to that second fight heavier than ever. He looked like a guy that was just there for the money. I wasn't impressed. But however, it's a win. So he's built some sort of momentum. But having said that, the fact that these guys are now wanting to put him in with a Tyson Fury or a Deontay Wilder or a Joe Joyce, absolute ridiculous. He right now should be targeting top 15 or top 10. Not even a Dillian White. Dillian White's a dangerous fight for him right now. Dillian White, in my opinion, is a fighter who's got nothing to lose. Anthony Joshua is one fight away from having to call it a day. Dillian White could lose another 5 fights to carry on fighting. He's here now to make money and maybe try and get on another path to a world title fight. But having said that, Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, right now needs to sort of go back to what he was when he first came onto the scene. The guy that beat Dillian White, the guy that beat Dominic Breazeale, and the guy that beat Vladimir Klitschko. That's the AJ we need to see now, because this is the last stage of his career. He's not getting any younger. He's not got enough time to learn new tricks. Why are you trying to change this guy? It's very rare that you see a heavyweight adapt. The one current heavyweight that showed me that he's capable of adapting is Tyson Fury. That's because he's the best heavyweight in the world. We've seen Tyson Fury going from a technical boxer to an absolute powerhouse.
Exactly. I was just going to say he did the opposite.
Alexander Usyk,
and he's done it really well.
Alexander Usyk beat Anthony Joshua with skill because technically he's a good boxer. Joe Joyce is beating fighters because he's got a great engine on him, and because no matter how many times you hit him, the guy's got a solid chin. Deontay Wilder, I thought in his third fight looked a bit, technically wasn't as great, but he showed he's a powerhouse.
Yeah, that's what he relies on. Yeah,
they're gonna use their kryptonite. They're gonna use their skills and their tactics in the best ways possible.
Sure.
I don't get why these trainers are trying to change Anthony Joshua. It's very simple. He's a power puncher. Make him be a power puncher. He's not technically. I thought the footwork and the movement, it was so static. It was nowhere near good enough. His movement was poor.
Yeah, I just thought well, look, if you think about Anthony Joshua, he's actively gone out to look for a trainer that can work on that side of things. Totally contradicting what you're saying. You're saying, look, stick to your strengths. You're a big beast. You are dropping guys. Early on in his career, he was stopping people in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
He hadn't gone past the first 3 rounds. That's a Joshua that got us on the edge of our seats and excited to watch him and his comment.
That Joshua made you believe that he could easily become the number 1 heavyweight.
So he's changed his trainer. This is the third trainer, Robert McCracken,
Robert Garcia.
Yeah, Robert Garcia, because he thought something wasn't right there. That's why I lost against Usyk. Second fight obviously didn't work there. Now he's gone to Derek James. Obviously he's got that win under his belt.
I struggle to see what they're trying to do with him now.
I'd like to see him with we'd pay for a pay-per-view for him against Wilder. We'd pay for
these are fights he needs to
against
avoid right now.
Joy Joyce. I don't know. I mean,
I think right now
the hunger. I mean, this is what a lot of kind of pundits have said. The hunger's not there. That
the motivation is money. He said it in press conferences and build up to the fight. The motivation is money. There's a hunger there. You know what? To some points,
well,
maybe
he's been there. He's been at the top of the mountain. He's had all the belts.
He can kiss goodbye to an undisputed. He's never going to become an undisputed champion. His best bet is right now is to have a couple of more fights and maybe at the end of his career push for a third world title. That's his best bet. Right now, he does not beat Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury annihilates him, bullies him. A third fight of Alexander Usyk is pointless. Joe Joyce, in my opinion, has got everything that Anthony Joshua wants to have right now. It's a fight that Joe Joyce wins.
Joe Joyce still has to be tested at elite level, though. The top 5 level.
I
mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I don't think I'm not saying that he's not a great fighter. I mean, but he's still the highest level he's fought at. What is it, Joseph Parker?
Joseph Parker, yeah.
So
Daniel Dubois, Carlos Takam. These are great wins.
But are they top 3, top 5
a lot
contenders?
Of people said that Dubois was going to knock him out inside the 6 rounds.
He turned the table there. But I'd like to. I mean, be a good test against Zhang. I think that one.
That's a fight I'm looking forward to. But I do expect Joe Joyce to come through comfortably. Let's talk about Jermaine Franklin's second fight in Britain. I'm impressed with Jermaine Franklin. I like Jermaine Franklin.
Well, look,
I don't think
24 rounds against 2 of Britain's top heavyweights. Not including Joyce and Fury, obviously, and he held his own. He didn't get dropped once. He gave a good account of himself, and he's in for more paydays.
I just hope he doesn't become a gatekeeper, because I think there's something about this Jermaine Franklin. I really like Jermaine Franklin.
Yeah.
I like Jermaine Franklin. I think he's likeable.
He's likeable.
He can take a punch.
Yeah, he can take a punch.
He's a big guy, but he moves well.
Yeah.
And I think, fights with, the likes of Daniel Dubois, Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora.
We got some other up-and-coming British fighters coming through as well.
These are very good fights for him. And I've said it for a long time that America needs another heavyweight coming through. Obviously, you got Jared Anderson.
I'm liking Jared Anderson from what I've seen him. He's still in his early days, though.
I just think with these 2 fights, it's sort of like now people know who Jermaine Franklin is. They know what to expect of him.
All right. Talking about if you're Jermaine Franklin's promoter, who's
Dimitri
Salita, do you put him with it, Jared Anderson?
Yeah, why not?
Get back to the US and you sell out.
Why not? Oh, I don't know about that.
No, I'm not talking about MSGs or any stadiums, but do you?
I don't know about selling out, but I think
that's a problem. That's a problem.
I really like Jermaine Franklin versus Daniel Dubois. I like that fight. Yeah. That's a fight I'd like to see.
Well, Dubois has been lined up for against Usyk at the moment,
which is what we will.
He's got bigger fish to fry.
Which is what we are going to discuss. Moving away from obviously the whole AJ fight, but before we do move away, next fight for Anthony Joshua.
I'd like to see either Dillian White, because I think that's going to be a great fight. Either Deontay Wilder. I'm going disagreeing with you. I think he's a cash cow. He needs to cash out. If he loses his next fight against a nobody, then what then? There is those fights kind of disappear. They don't have that same appeal and how much they would be worth. Considering, if he needs to go in now, strike when the iron's hot. He's come back. He wants to fight again in summer, apparently, and then fight again in December. This is what we want. We want
him to be active.
Active 3 fights a year. He was fighting once a year. That's not good enough. And he admitted that himself. So those would be the 2 I would like. Joe Joyce, get in there. You know what I mean? Like, come on, AJ, come on, show us that you're not what the pundits have been saying. The fire's gone. What you've said. Prove the doubt is wrong. Prove the hate is wrong. He was quite vocal about it in his post-fight interview. If you heard about it, because they can go and F themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, look, listen. I mean, got good fights. I personally don't think he should fight any of the top heavyweights anytime soon. That's including Dillian White, because I just think there's something not right with Anthony Joshua. I would look at an Ortiz or a Hrgovic. I think they're the fights that he needs to be targeting, because he's got to do something convincing in his next fight with whoever it is, because it's something not clicking at the moment. I don't know, man. I don't want to sound like I'm being so negative on the guy, because I am a fan of him. I'm a fan of what he's accomplished, but I just think he needs to stop being the opposite to what we know what he is, which is a powerhouse. But only time will tell. Let's move on and we'll talk a bit about another rumour. And it's a rumour I know we've heard it a number of times, but I've just got a feeling this time it's heading in the right direction. A fight between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence for the undisputed 147 welterweight championship of the world could be announced on the same night as Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. What we're seeing is very positive. Do you believe it's going to happen? Do you believe we'll get an announcement, maybe if not on the night of the Tank Davis and Garcia fight?
I hope so. Because the welterweight is not a topic of discussion as much anymore.
There's something I've got to ask you. How much money do you think's in that fight? Be completely honest. Do you think there's a lot of money in that fight?
It's got to be, innit? I think that's what's kind of now. That's what brought them to the table. Do you reckon? No. You know what I mean? Because they've been reluctant before. Something might have been stopping them prior. Mm-hmm. But come on, I think the Americans are just lagging behind at the moment with the boxing scene. If they were two British fighters, a lot more money would be involved, and we'd be selling out a stadium for this fight. Yeah, I think if it was two British fighters, we'd be A, selling a stadium out, and B, there'd be a lot more pressure for the fight to happen. So I'd like to think that there's more money on the table than what was previously, kind of thrown around. So hence why they didn't get into a ring. Are the numbers right this time, do you reckon?
Well, I mean, if supposedly it's going in the right way and, we're on the verge of getting an announcement, so, it'd be interesting to see who's putting the money up. I personally thought the best solution for this would it'd go to purse bids, and someone like an Eddie Hearn or a Sky Sports and Boxer bid for it, and they get it and they front out the money, because I do believe they can afford a fight like this. I remember when Dillian White fought Jermaine Franklin the week of that fight. There was a lot of talks about the Spence Crawford fight being made, and I asked Eddie Hearn and then interview him, and I said to him about, at what point do you look at this situation and think, well, do you know what, if there's a possibility, I'll bid for it, put it on the zone. And he said it's something that I'd love to do, but he also mentioned about whether there was any money for it, whether the people who are trying to make the fight have the money for it. So, but it's going in the right direction. We're hearing a lot of positives rather than negatives. It seems as if the fighters want the fight, which, I don't believe not one of the fighters has not wanted it. They're both champions. They're elite fighters. Crawford's a 4-weight world champion. Spence, in my opinion, is one of my favourite fighters. I believe he's one of the best fighters in the world. There's no way that any one of these fighters
pound for pound fighters.
They're pound for pound fighters. And listen, there's no shame. No shame for the loser here. I reckon, if it's a great fight, which I expect it to be, we could potentially be looking at a second and possibly even third fight. I mean, if the numbers are good.
Yeah, I mean, the generation we grew up when, it was the welterweights.
Yes.
That was the division. That was where all the fighters were, like the Pacquiaos, the Mayweathers, and that's what we stayed up late for. Mm-hmm. That's died down. I'm sure we're going to talk about the other fights that are being made with two pound for pound fighters going up against each other. So it's about time the welterweights did that.
Yeah. And how many years were we calling out for Mayweather and Pacquiao? Oh, we got it, but it was way too late. But this is done now at the perfect time. And you look at the 147 pound division. I mean, I'm not going to even go through the British domestic fighters, because apart from Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz, listen, mate. This is the fight that's happening.
I mean, Conor Benn, he was. I mean, he
was.
Well,
I'm sorry, but no, there's no. Look, Conor Benn as a fighter, I'm a fan of him. Yes, I am, but he's not beating anyone worthy of a shot at the likes of the Spencers and the Crawfords. No. Regardless of how much of a big draw in the UK is, nobody wants to see these guys fight anybody else.
Sure.
People saw Crawford fight Avanesian, fan of Avanesian, but levels were shown in that night. Spencer's fought on the likes of the Mikey Garcias and the Daddy Garcias, and they both had two great fights with Sean Porters. But these are the elite fighters. This is the fight now. There's no other fights out there for them. This is the fight everybody wants to see. And fingers crossed that it is a fight that does get made, and it's a fight that's going to happen. And let's wait and see. Let's move on and let's talk about some announcements. Lawrence Okolive versus Chris Billam-Smith announced for May.
Shocked at that one.
But no, what I'm shocked about is that it falls on the same night as Luis Alberto Lopez and Michael Conlon, which will be a top-ranked show. I believe it'll be on BT Sports as well. And it's also the same night as Maurizio Lara versus Lee Wood, which was announced the other night.
Fucking night of boxing, eh?
I don't know which one I'm going to go cover. No. That's what I'm worried about. Amount of content I'm going to miss out on. But before the obviously whole clash of 3 world title fights, great fight in my opinion, Okolive
Are
Billam-Smith.
you not surprised that Okolive's just defended his title and he jumped back in the fire?
You know what? He needed to do this. This is exactly what he needed to get
2 months out? I mean,
to get the British public off his back, because he was hounded after the David Light fight.
It wasn't a great performance.
It wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a great fight. A lot of people were ripping into him on social media. But I'm glad that he's keeping active, and I'm glad that we're getting the fight with Chris Billam Smith. It's a good fight.
Can I just double check? Chris Billam Smith is trained by Shane McGuigan. Is that right?
They were both trained by Shane McGuigan, but now Okolive moved over to
that's going to be
Sugar
extra.
Hill,
I was expecting more with him being under the with Sugar Hill. I thought I was expecting more, but I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. It was a bit of a bore. He's reverting back to what he was doing.
Then you kind of got to look at the Joshua performance with Derek James. It was their first fight, No,
but this is it. But this is something. This is what's been a massive criticism of Lawrence Okolive, that you're grabbing hold of too much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But we've discussed it on this channel before, where he's not enjoyable to watch. He's effective. Yes, he's a world champion, and he uses that, rangy arms, to good effect. Like he ties up his opponent after throwing a few combinations. So I'm hoping that this is going to be, because they've sparred with each other. How many hours?
They know each other inside out.
They know they're good friends as well outside of the ring. But he goes, look, that goes. You put that to the side, and what a great fight for Bournemouth. At the stadium. I don't know if they've ever held a boxing event like that before. So.
Well, it beat us a few weeks ago at Bournemouth Stadium. But yeah, no. At the end of the day, look, it's a good fight.
What's your prediction there?
I think Okolive wins.
Points?
I don't know. It's a tough one because Billam Smith's the fighter that's got nothing to lose. And I'm glad we're getting these fights as well because I feel for Okolive because none of the world champions have wanted to fight him. The Gillamaris, obviously Badou Jack's just won the WBC world title from Ilunga Makabu. Makabu held it. He was more interested in fighting Canelo, and I'm glad he didn't fight Canelo after back of that fight with Badou Jack. But I do feel for Okolive because he's chased these fights. But then it makes me think, well, why did you just not vacate and move up to heavyweight? But at the same time, I'm glad that it's happening. Another interesting factor is Richard Riakporhe. Apparently, he's left boxer apparently.
He's left
his
boxer.
Contract's up with them, and he's left, and he's looking at another sort of dimension.
That's not a very long contract with him. What was it?
No, it's a shame because he was so active with boxer. He was headlining at the OVO arena in Wembley. I believe boxer were doing a good job with him. He'd beaten Dion Juma, which was a good 50-50 British domestic fight. And I would have liked to have believed that the winner of this Billam Smith fight versus Okolive would have fought him. But
so on the undercard, another cruiserweights. You've got
Michael Lowell and Isaac Chamberlain. Interesting face-off as well the other day as well. Good fight. Good fight.
I mean,
Isaac Chamberlain's got to win that fight.
You know what? He's stepped up twice, and it's not come off for him. So I mean, that first one against Lawrence Okolive, that was early on in his career.
That
was my first.
It was your fault. I want to go to it.
Yeah. But again, Lawrence Okolive did what Lawrence Okolive does really best. Just doesn't let you fight your fight. But that's where he gets his heavy criticism. I think for Lawrence, I think if he wants to get that recognition,
is the term "stunk the place out" the right phrase to use with Lawrence Okolive's performances in these big fights?
It's entertainment, isn't it? Boxing,
it's a results business at the same time.
It is, but you've got to entertain, and otherwise people won't come and watch. Apparently when Lawrence Okolive was fighting, people were leaving that's not a good look. Whichever promotional company you're with, be it Matchroom, be it Boxer, be it Queensbury, you want good fights. You want the knockout reels. You want the that was end to end. You want entertainment, like Gladiator. Are you entertained? You want.
Are you entertained?
But you don't get that with people. The funny memes I was coming across. Forget about sleeping tablets. I'm going to watch a Lawrence Okolive fight.
You spend too much time on your phone, Ron. But no, listen. Nonetheless, again, it's fair play to Sky Sports Boxer. It'll be their first sort of stadium fight since starting this new adventure. And I've got to say they're doing things the right way.
Good to see, like these fights taking place in places like Bournemouth. Wembley.
I was at Bournemouth last year when Billam Smith fought Isaac Chamberlain, and the whole press conference and workout was on the beach.
Nice.
It was brilliant, man. It's something different. I took the wife and the boy.
They
spent some time on the beach.
With
Johnny Nelson as well. Shout out to my boy Johnny Nelson. it's different. And I think, you've got to sort of look at places like Bournemouth and, because the nitty-gritty is always the London, the O2, the AO Arena in Manchester. You've got Liverpool as well. You've got to sort of start expanding out now in the rest of the UK. We've had a few shows in Cardiff. I'd like to see Glasgow use a bit more. I mean, we're going to get Belfast between Taylor and Cameron, and of course Michael Collin, Luis Alberto Lopez as well. So I just think we've got to start expanding out now. Let's try Bournemouth. Let's try other places in London. York Hall has always been there, and it always will be there. So fair play. They tried something different, which is good.
I mean, he's
different is good.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you your thoughts on Ben Shalom.
Yeah, he doesn't back down, does he?
No, he doesn't.
He'll say what his opinion is, and fair enough. He's doing a great job with Boxer. He's rivaling two established promoters in British boxing.
Well, he's taken Lawrence Okoli and Josh Boatsi from Matchroom and DAZN.
Yeah, and he's been very vocal about what the Conor Ben situation and the Amir Khan situation.
But as a promoter, what have you made of him so far?
I like him. I think it makes the other two promoters think, shit, we have to step up our game. It's not between the two of us anymore. There's a new kid in town, and he's younger, and he's getting, I like his stable of fighters that he's got. These up and coming, like the Azim, Hassan, was it Hassan? Adam and Hassan. Both those brothers. Ben Whittaker's a great fighter. Yeah. He's got a good female boxers under his car.
A lot of these Olympians.
Yeah. So Fraser Clark, and I think he's doing the right way about it.
He's sort of building for the future, isn't he?
He is, and there must be a reason why a lot of these are jumping ship and coming to him.
Yeah.
So, you weren't the biggest fan of his.
At the beginning, no, I just felt there was something missing. I mean, as a promoter, I thought he was doing the right things, but the personality-wise, there was something missing. But I think, it's a fault of my own. I think it takes time to sort of build into that. I mean, I remember when
is he mid-20s or something? He's ridiculously young.
Mid-30s something, but I remember when I first started interviewing and I was all over the place. So
have you had a pleasure of interviewing him?
I've interviewed him, yeah. And I think as time's gone on, I will always look back to what he gave us, Khan versus Brook.
Yeah.
And the new kid on the block gave us that. Not a Frank Warren, not Eddie Hearn, not any of these American promoters. This guy come along within the first year of his breakout year, and he gave us that fight. And not to mention that month for Eubank Jr. Williams, and obviously Taylor versus Carrot. He delivered all that in a month.
Sure.
At the beginning, I was like, okay, there's something missing from the personality. But as time's gone on, I've grown on him, and he's doing the right things. He's definitely building for the future, and I've got to say the future looks bright for Sky Sports and Boxer, and it's exciting for us as well because we get to see the next crop of fighters coming through. I mean, unfortunately we're slowly moving away from the previous era now. We've got to start looking at the future, and the future is the Azim brothers and obviously the female British fighters from the Olympics. So we're moving away now, which boxing it's a short career, as many fighters say. So it's exciting times. A couple of more topics before we bring Pod 61 to an end. The heavyweight division up in the mud is something we've not really spoken about because we've not done a podcast for a while, but we are going to try and be more on it, Ron, from now on.
I hope so.
Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. It's
massive shame.
Yeah.
It just saddened me that we didn't get to see a unified heavyweight champion.
Undisputed.
Sorry, my apologies. Undisputed.
It's all right. The P45 will be for your letterbox tomorrow morning.
I'm gutted. I was looking. I had it all, saved in my phone. The April the 29th, and we're going to have this spectacle of these two pound for pounders going for it. You were obviously a massive Tyson Fury fan, but I gave Usyk a chance. But it would have been. For boxing, we would have seen two purists, with their boxing skills. No one's got footwork like Usyk. No one's got the skills that Tyson Fury's got at 6'9" or however tall he is. But it's really gutted that we're not getting that. Instead of we had this back and forth of kind of making offers and him coming back with his counter offer. We thought. I was following Frank Warren, and he was coming on TalkSport often, and he was, talking about we're very close to making an announcement. I was like, surely, we've got 4 weeks left until fight night. When are you going to send the tickets? I thought maybe it was a way to kind of drum up the attention, to get people to buy the tickets quickly. And sadly, it didn't come. It fell through at the end. Where we were expecting for it to come through. But do we know what? I mean, Usyk's team, and you came out and said it's not Tyson Fury's fault.
Yeah.
We pulled out. Usyk pulled out. Do you know why? Do we know why?
I mean, well, you've openly admitted that it was you that pulled out negotiations. But why did you pull out negotiations? You missed that bit out. And quite frankly, what both parties have done, in my opinion, is they've disgraced boxing. I mean, listen. I'm a Tyson Fury guy all the way. Always have been. Always will be. But I mean, I think you got to look at Usyk's manager, for example, right?
Garcia.
I mean, what on earth are you doing accepting a 30% split? Your man holds 4 belts.
I didn't get that.
All right, number one. Number two, there was this whole hoorah about a rematch clause. Yeah, okay. Next point.
The rematch they wanted.
The rematch clause, which just...
They wanted 70-30 the other way.
Just get the first fight signed. I mean, if it's a great fight, then you do a second fight.
I think it will be, the public will demand for it, and it will be...
Both parties, in my opinion, are purely to blame. Yes, Alex Krassik's admitted that they pulled out negotiations. Fine, fair enough. But Frank Warren's side, when you're going to get an announcement soon, the fight is happening. Why are you dick-teasing the fans for? Why? Why would you do that for?
Agreed.
I mean, it's bad enough that we had to watch the absolute farce of the third fight with Derek Chisora, which it was. It was an absolute farce. It was a complete mismatch, Yes, I went to it. I mean, I put my hands up, but, obviously being in the boxing industry, I like to cover as much as I can. And I'm not going to turn down an opportunity to go cover a WBC World Heavyweight title fight. But at the same time, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, look, I'm not going to go too much into sort of the politics. The bottom line is simple. Both fighters should vacate every single belt. Because you've had no interest in making an undisputed champion. What we're going to get next is we're going to get Usyk versus Dubois, and Usyk's going to school him. Yeah? We're going to get Tyson Fury versus Manuel Shah or Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 4. There's no interest in those fights.
No.
The only interesting point about a Wilder fight is that Wilder has a chance of winning because of the power he's got and because he's shown that he can hurt Fury, which he's done in the past. I think both fighters have disgraced the division. I think it's clearly not good enough. It's not acceptable. I think they should vacate all the belts. Simple as that. They should vacate all. And I feel it's just so much. I'm so frustrated because it's the one fight I wanted more than any other fight. I had my list of fights. This was the fight I wanted because I wanted an undisputed champion. It would have upset me if Fury would have lost, but there's no shame in losing to a fighter like Usyk. But at least we would have got a king of the heavyweight division.
Agreed. I mean, I nothing there that you said that I disagree with. It was just...
So you think they should vacate?
If they're going to do this, just hold up the belts. There's a lot
Which is what they're doing.
Yeah, which they are. And Fury, when was the last time he fought? It was December. And, that whole thing at the end with that whole bizarre WWE-like face-off between the three of them, I thought, all right, you better fucking fight one of them at least. A Joyce fight I would have accepted. I would have been like, you know what? Joyce, you've sung his praises and rightly so.
I think you'll fight Joyce next. Tyson Fury.
I think Joyce has got his fight in Zhang. But when does he fight him? If Joyce, let's just say that would be the only credible fight that he can have. If he doesn't fight Usyk, obviously. That'll be in the summer. Will it really? I mean, Tyson Fury's not one that fights that regularly. He's a twice-a-year fight as well. I would see that as September, October, December time for Saudi money. I think Simon Jordan hit it nail on his head that this is where it came from. Tyson's got a figure in his head. That's what he wanted. He wasn't getting that because they were wanting to go to Saudi. Saudi were only interested if AJ was involved. Apparently Usyk had agreed it with the Saudis. He was happy with the money.
Well, the bottom line is, Ron,
it didn't happen.
Fury versus Joshua financially and globally is a bigger fight than Fury versus Usyk.
Of course it is. But that's what the Saudis wanted. Look, if we're going to spend that much money, we want the best.
Well, we're going to pump our money into it. We want what we're paying for.
And that would be, you'll get all sorts of attention for that. I mean, Usyk, he's not as much of apart from boxing purists who actually love him and kind of respect him, he's not a global name like Joshua. Even though he's schooled Joshua on 2 occasions, and he's got 4 of the belts.
It's in the mud, mate. The whole sport's in the mud at the moment. Doing a couple of interviews this week with like sort of prospects coming through the fight. There was meant to be a show, I believe, in Sheffield.
Okay.
Or the Northeast. Show was meant to be tonight. Got pulled on Tuesday night.
Oh God, I just feel for the fighters.
Yes.
When you said that, I feel for those guys who have grafted away, waiting for their fight to show their.
And you'll see these interviews on our platform, which will be releasing as time goes on. Yeah.
Yeah. Just poor athletes.
Look, the whole sport at the moment. These
Who's headlining that one? That particular fight, the one in Northeast, you know?
Steve Robinson, the heavyweight, was on it. There's a couple of other local fighters from the Northeast.
So
regardless,
it's still
guys are in training camp. Come on, try and put me and you in a training camp. We'd probably fall at the first hurdle.
Yeah. I mean, the dieting that they have to go on and the sacrifices they have to put in, and
I mean, it's just been the most darkest time you've seen in boxing.
Oh, come on. We can finish this on a better note. Come on. Let's talk about the lightweights. Let's talk about the lightweights. Come on. I mean, I hate seeing you like this.
I'm disappointed.
I know you haven't eaten all day, but come on.
Ramadan's getting to me.
Lightweights, come on. Let's talk about the two big fights that have been made recently.
Well, obviously you've got a couple of April 22nd, Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis. And then obviously you've got...
okay, let's talk about that one. Who are you fighting with? Where are you going?
I'm still going to go with Gervonta Tank Davis, strictly because I believe he's had a tougher test in his career, former world champion, more
points,
active fighter.
knockout,
I think it would by points. I don't think someone's getting knocked out in this fight. And then obviously you've had another great blockbuster fight announced in
the lightweights are showing the light, aren't they? Yeah.
The lightweights are showing the rest of boxing how it should be done. Yeah. Simple as that.
Lomachenko versus Devin Haney.
Great fight. Brilliant fight. And you know what it is though, Rod?
Legacy fight.
It's not about the money. It's not about, who the bigger face is. These fights are happening. Why? Because they want to fight each other. The best want to fight the best. Mike Tyson said something many, many years ago, I believe in about 2018. He goes, stop giving the money to the smaller weights, put the money into heavyweight boxing. Well, this is a prime example of why you shouldn't put money into heavyweight boxing, because it's the smaller weights that are giving the best fights. The heavyweights are the ones that are not fighting each other. Yeah. These guys at the smaller weights, the lightweight division.
The smaller weights, they're making more sacrifices, about the weight cuts and, how scrutinized, how that must be difficult a challenge to do.
Lomachenko, Devin Haney, prediction?
Wow. That's a difficult one. I really, really am. I mean, it's a legacy fight, isn't it? If Devin Haney comes in and gets a name...
Well, he said this is the legacy fight for him.
Most definitely is. We know how amazing of a fighter Lomachenko is, with his amateur record, with what he's done in the game in such a short period of time. But, he's got the 2 defeats on his record against... was it no, it wasn't Cambosis. Who did Lomachenko lose against? That was
Teofimo Lopez. He's lost to,
I mean, sticking on the lightweights, you got Teofimo Lopez versus
super lightweight Josh Taylor.
Yeah. So
great fight as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you've got Shakur Stevenson, who's moving into that division as well.
Lightweight.
Lightweight.
Apparently, there's rumours of Jack Carroll versus Regis Progress, super lightweight. It's a great fight.
Bloody hell! You know what I mean? Like, there you go. You've mentioned about 4 or 5 good fights there.
And then Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson. I've got my top 5 list. I've got him as probably my 3rd favourite fighter. I love Shakur Stevenson. Yeah, I'm so glad that we're getting to see these fights.
At least
now.
the lightweights are showing the way. I mean, you spoke about another kind of 2, pound for pounders.
Prograis versus Carroll versus Jack Carroll's a great fight as well. At some point, it's
glad he's moving on from that. What I mean? What's happened with what's happened in the past with that controversial kind of last...
Josh Taylor versus Jack Carroll 2 will happen. It will happen. It's going to happen at some point.
Hopefully, they've both got something to fight for. They both bring something to the table.
Only time will tell.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Right, well, I believe we've pretty much covered
it.
Well, I want to go home. I've had to part with you for the last hour or so, But Rod, listen, pleasure as always, mate.
Yeah, pleasure.
Good to have you on. We've got to try and keep this a regular thing, which we hope we're going to do. But we are delivering a lot of content, and the only way to keep up to date with us and our latest content is make sure you're already subscribed to the channel, turn on the bell for future notifications. Want the best, you want to be represented in court, Our sponsor, Spartans Law, the best in the UK, the best in the world.
If you want to buy this T-shirt, we'll put
Hit
a
us
link
up on the
below.
social media platforms. Social media links are below
Yeah.
in the description. And if you want to listen to his podcast on any of the audio platforms, they are below in the description as well.
Sure.
Spotify, iTunes, all the audio platforms you can think about. Ron, once again, a pleasure as always. And guys, thank you very much for listening to podcast 61 of the Lights Out Boxing Podcast.